Hello, for this video I want to discuss filtering. If we look at our two main areas, our expenses and our income, on both these screens we have a number of drop down boxes. See these drop down boxes here? As I highlight these boxes, it changes what is written up top here and it tells me what it is I'm highlighting. This is very similar to these boxes here, as a matter of fact, although it doesn't change that name. If I click this here, see how I've got check, cash, etc. That is what is in this column. I'm not selecting it on a line, I'm selecting it next to the heading. If I select here and I go select cash, it's going to return all entries on the screen whose method was cash. Credit card. See that? If I click the all button, they all return to the screen. All entries return to the screen according to whatever the dates is I've got up here. Everything on this screen, all these filtering buttons, refer back to this period. Okay. Now, and obviously, if we change this period, it's going to change what's presented. Same with this drop down icon here. If I wanted to see, say, I only wanted to see vehicle, fuel, and expenses on the screen, I click fuel and oil, and that's all I'm seeing on the screen. Now, let's have a look at these ones up here. This does exactly the same as these ones. These here are just quick heading, other quick methods of selecting. But if I go up here and I go method, that there is the same as this one. So I wouldn't be using here, I'd be using it here because it's easier to locate. Again, that one there is this one here, and this one here is the project one. So the three in the middle are these three here. So I wouldn't even be using these up here. I'd be using these. But on the outside, if we go on the left hand outside, here we can view our accounts payables. Anything that came from an accounts payable account and it followed through into the expenses if you're using accounts payable. Okay, so that's a simple selection, and here we've got another selection where we can see entries by month. I'm going to see all entries in January. This is the only selection method that overrides this, because naturally if I wanted to see entries in January and it listened to this, I wouldn't be able to see it. So this selection method overrides these dates. Okay, this column on the right hand side. On the income screen, the column on the right hand side is also the month column. Okay, so if I want to see all entries in May, there is no entries in May. All entries in April, there we go. I'm selecting dates where there's nothing on this screen. And there we go. We've got something here. Okay, I'm going to jump out. I'm going to jump into the income screen. I'm going to prove that to you. If you look on the right-hand side, that's your dates again. Okay, so if I select June, we see all June entries, but there isn't any. I'm not much luck here, am I? There we go. We've got some July entries, some test entries here. Okay, so that's pretty obvious. And again, if you look next to here, we've got the method of payment. We have a project one. This screen only has two. So what have we got up top here? Accounts receivables on the left hand side, similar to our accounts payable on the other screen. And on the right hand side is our month. Second from the left is, this here allows us just to see all income entries that came from invoices. So if I click this, we saw all the entries that came from an invoice. And if I click here, we see all the entries that came from a credit note, which there isn't any. Here we can see all entries that came from accounts receivable, which is the same as selecting that one there. But here we can see individual accounts receivables by selecting the individual names. Okay, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But there is one more unique feature that is available on both the income and the expense screens. And that is a method of refinement filtering. Now, what I'm talking about is this. Right here on the income screen, I'm seeing everything for the whole year. Now, let's say I was looking for a transaction, and I know that I paid for that transaction by cash, and I know that that transaction belonged to a grouping of barbecue settings, because that was what I set up my project group as. But if I select barbecue settings here, I then see all the entries on the screen for barbecue settings. But I think, well, I want to see cash and barbecue settings. See this switch box here? If I click this icon here, it turns on this. See that changed? I'll click it again, it changed back. As I highlight each one of these, this name changes on the screen. If I click this, it's now over here. See me highlighting here and see the name changing? This remembers. It says, this screen here says you can select entries by this, or this, or this. When I've got this turned on, it says I can have this line and this line and this line, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's say I want to see, I don't want to use that one, I want to see all cash entries, but I also want to see any entry where I paid cash that belongs in March. So it's only returned to me all sales in March, or sorry, all income in March where income was made by cash. Now I can switch that and say I want to see checks. There isn't any. I want to see credit card. There isn't any. Okay, so let's jump back and let's clear that. I'm going to click, if I click all, it clears it. Okay, let me see something where we've definitely got something here. Pretty hard, but we did had checks in January. That's why we didn't see checks before. Okay, so in this instance, I want to see everything under the barbecue settings, and I want to see all those whose income was made by cash. Barbecue and cash. So now I see barbecue category and cash. So remember, this does an and. So if I go further now and I say I want to see February, now it's only returned one entry by February, and it must have to equal that, and it has to equal that. So it has to equal all these three. Whereas the previous one we selected only had to equal one. I only had the choice of one or the other. Okay, I hope I've explained that good enough. This is for or, this is for and. This and this and this. It's a great method of filtering. Now that is available on both the income and expense screens. Click it on here. You've got more selections here. And click it back off. Okay, I think I've explained that